Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can get directions from the Google API and how you can show this direction inside of your React Native Map app. And also I'm going to show you how we zoom in and out to show these directions on the map. So let's get on to it. First thing we need to do is to go on to the Routes API. So Google Routes API, and then you need to go into this page and select Get Started. Then make sure to tick off all of the boxes. So Maps, Routes, Places. And then select a project and so on. It's similar process to when we're doing the autocomplete section, but we need to have the Routes API as well. Now, once that is done, you're going to get an API key, which you're going to use inside of the project. So I'm pasting in the API key inside of a file I have, so I can reference to the API key anywhere inside of my project. Just like we had inside of the autocomplete section. Now there's also a React Native Map Directions component that you can use, but I prefer that we just do this from scratch using a PolyLine component inside of React Native Maps instead. So if you Google Directions, then select maybe the third one with the Google Maps Routes. Click on Docs. And here you need to select the Directions API. And inside here, you can see an example of a request and a response. So we're going to copy this sample request and use it inside Postman to see if we can get some data from the API. So start up Postman. So in Postman, paste in the sample request from the documentation from before and go and paste in your API key as well. Now let's see if it works. And we get a response from the API going from Disneyland to Universal Studios. And you can see there's lots of different points you're going to get with these waypoints for a route going from A to B. And there's also going to be some kind of gibberish strings that is containing lots of points that we can use for our polylines inside of the React Native map. Go ahead and Google React Native Maps and select the polyline result. And then you can read up about the polyline element and how it works a bit. You can see there's stroke colors and stroke width and so on. And there's also a coordinates property that is accepting an array of latitude and longitude. Next step is we need to convert this overview polyline containing points into an array of latitude and longitude that we can pass into this polyline and use it inside our React Native maps. To help us convert this string into an array of longitude and latitude, we're going to use the Mapbox polyline. So go ahead and add that using yarn add. And now we will write the function which is actually calling the API inside of React Native. So async get route directions. And we're just going to call it with the exact same queries as we did inside of Postman. We're not going to add any variables yet. We just need to see if we can get this working with some hard-coded variables. Let's start out by having a try catch clause. So catch error, and we do a console log if we get any errors. And then inside the try clause, we do some fetching of the API. So const response, and in here we paste in the API URL that we made up inside of Postman. So we know this URL is working fine. And you can see there's the API key, the origin and destination variables. Then we have the JSON. Remember to have the await in front of fetch. And we also do await on the response.json. Then we need to import the PolyLine from the Mapbox package. Remember there's a capital L in the PolyLine, that's important. Then we're going to convert this string of the points inside of the JSON response to a points array instead. And the PolyLine that we want to get is specifically located at routes and the first result. And then on overview PolyLine.points. You can see the same result inside of the Postman response if you want to take a look at it. Then we're going to map over the array of these points, and we're going to convert each of these points into an object instead with the latitude and longitude. This is a format that the PolyLine inside of React Native Maps can understand. So the points that we get from PolyLine is an array of arrays. So we go through each of these points and map over it, turn it into an array containing a latitude, longitude based on point 0 and point 1. After that, let's go and set the state for the point coords so we can use it inside of our PolyLine. And then I'm also going to initialize the point coords array in the constructor. Just set it to an empty array. Now let's add the PolyLine element. So we go mapView.PolyLine and pass in the coordinates that we set inside of our state. Then we set the stroke width to be 2 and set a stroke color. And make the L to be a small L instead of a capital L, or else you will get an error. So PolyLine with a small L. Now let's call the getRouteDirections when we start up the app. So inside component.mount, we're going to call getRouteDirections. So now let's try and pass in the latitude and longitude for the origin instead of the Disneyland. So make sure to use the slanted apostrophe in here because we're going to be using string literals. So we have a $sign and the curly braces. And we pass in the latitude first and then have a comma. And then we pass in the longitude. And let's keep the destination as it is for now. Now when I load it, we get an error that the PolyLine, the overview PolyLine is undefined, meaning there's an error with the response here. So why is why is that? Why are we getting an error here? Well, it's because we're loading up the function before we actually have the latitude and longitude. Up in component.mount, we need to load the function after we get the position from the navigator. So make sure to cut this .getRouteDirections from bottom of component.mount into inside the getCurrentPosition after we get the position. Now let's import the PolyLine element itself, so we don't write mapView.polyline. So let's go to the top and up in mapView and put in curly braces, write PolyLine. And then we have the polyline here, but we still don't have the polyline showing. And why is that? Well, that's because we need to have it inside of a map view. So let me show you how that is. Put the map view here and the polyline here. And then we end the map view element there. So the polyline is inside the map view. And now we see the polyline is appearing inside of the map view. Now the next step we need to do now is, of course, to be able to dynamically select what endpoint or what destination you want to go to and draw the polyline after this. So basically we need to be able to enter in a destination at the top of the text input and then tap on what destination we want to go to, and the polyline or the routes is automatically going to change to that destination. Now please note that in this version I'm showing you right now, I did not have Lodash for the unchanged destination imported yet. So if your code is a little different, then don't worry about it. It's going to be the same result. Now let's import a touchable highlight from React Native so we can press each of these predictions from when we type in. So let's go down to where we have the predictions and wrap a touchable highlight around them. Now let's cut the key property onto the touchable highlight instead of having it on the text, because it needs to be on the most outer element. And then let's wrap a view around the text. Now let's define the onPress as calling the get the route, where we pass in a place ID from the prediction. So in here, we're going to pass in the place or the destination for where you are pressing instead. So we call this .getRouteDirections and pass in the prediction and the place ID of this prediction from the Google API. Remember to have the arrow function in here. And now let's see if something happens when I press on the suggestions. So we get a little highlight when you press on it. In here you can see the place ID we get from the Google API. Now we need to accept a place ID inside the getRouteDirections. If you're using a place ID, you need to prepend the place ID in front and then have a colon, not a equal sign like I do now. That's an error. Use a colon. You will see me fix it later. Then I'm going to use the API key that I imported already. It's going to be the same key anyway. I just do it to make the string a little nicer. And now I'm changing it from place ID equals to place ID with a colon. That's important you do that or it will not work. Now let's see if it finally works. So we type in a destination and we tap on it. And lo and behold, it is drawing a new polyline. However, it's still showing the predictions, so we need to reset the predictions or stop showing them somehow. An easy way to do that could be to just set the predictions array to be empty again. So here, after we get the coordinates and the route directions, I set the predictions to be an empty array because this is after we have pressed the suggestions that we get. Now let's see if it's removing the predictions after we press the button. And you can see it is now removing the predictions so the user can see the map after they selected their destination. However, one more thing I like to do is to set the name where the user is entering in this destination to be the destination that they tapped on. So let's see what kind of text we have inside a JSON and try to set it to that maybe. So we pass in a destination name inside of the get route directions, and we also set the destination name in the state to be whatever the user has pressed on. So we pass in the prediction.description. And then let's set the destination in here to be the destination name that we pass in from the other selection the user made. I'm going to rename this to destination place ID, just so it's clear that this is actually the destination place ID we're talking about. Now let's see if it changes the name to whatever the user is tapping on. There we go. So now the name changes to this long description name. I think maybe it would be nice if it was a shorter name we used instead. So let's try and see if we can get that from the predictions JSON result from Google. So inside of the structured formatting property, I can see there's one that has the main text and there's also a secondary text. Let's try and just use the main text for the text to be changed to into this destination name. So instead of using description, let's use the structured formatting and use the main text instead. So now when we click on the result, we get a nicely formatted name instead. I'm also going to set the result on these predictions to be the nicer formatted ones instead. Okay, so now we have nicely formatted suggestions. We change the name when we click. Now, next thing we need to do is to zoom in or out to wherever the next destination is that we're selecting. Okay, everyone. So now we need to do a couple of more things and then we are actually done. So I loaded up the Android version here and you can see when I type in the destination and I click on it, the keyboard is still being shown. So we need to dismiss the keyboard and it's really easy to do that. First, go up in the top here and press in keyboard. So we import keyboard from React Native. And then once you're in the get route directions method, the one that gets called whenever the user press on the suggestions, then once this user has selected a suggestion, we just want to dismiss the keyboard. So keyboard dismiss. That's how easy that is. So let's see if it works. So now if I press the destination, the keyboard is no longer there. Now, as you can see, the route is not being displayed fully. There's only some of the route being displayed, and obviously it's pretty annoying for the user if they have to zoom out manually and see how their route is going to be. So we want to do that automatically inside of the React Native maps. How do we do that? It's actually fairly simple. First, we need to make a reference to the map view. So we go ref this.map and we say, we say ref map this.map equals map. So what this has done is it enables us to call functions on this element anywhere inside of the React Native component we're in. So that means we can do stuff like this. Up here where we also dismissed the keyboard in the get route directions, we are now also going to zoom out or zoom in the map where the destination is. So you can press in this.map dot, and then you can call functions that's for this map view. So fit to coordinates, we can say. And here we need to pass in coordinates array of latitude and longitude. And thankfully that fits with what we have already here that we're using for PolyLine, the array of point coords. So we just pass in the point coords that we already defined. And then we have a options you can pass in. You can pass in some object where you put or set a padding for how much for how much space you want in the map between your fitting. Anyway, let's see how it works for now. So I go and reload or refresh this, and let's see if it's fitting now. So there you go. So now you can see it is zooming out and showing us the full route that we have selected. Awesome, right? Now you can also pass in this option. You can make it not animated if you want that. But I think animation is cool. Everyone thinks that animation is cool, right? So we're not going to do that. But if you want some sort of edge padding on it, you can pass in the edge padding, and you can set a top, how much padding you want, bottom, left, right. And that's going to set the padding for how much space you want to show the coordinates. But I'm not going to use that. I leave it like it is. I'm just passing in this one. It's just to show you that you can do that if you want to. Now, so let's see. What else could we do? What else can we do? Oh yeah, one more thing. Let's see. Now, when I click there, I want to see a little flag or a little marker at the end destination. So the user has a clear image of where they are going exactly. So first, let's import the marker from the React Native Maps package. So marker. And yeah, let's go and pass that in here. But it's only when the user has tapped on a destination in here that we want to display a marker, right? So we need to check if there's coordinates being set for this polyline. That's how I would do it anyway. So we check if if the state of point chords has a length of over 1. So that means that someone has pressed a destination and there's a point chords array being set. So if that has been set, we will display a marker. So let's first set the marker to be null up here. And so if there's a point chord set, if the user has pressed the suggestions, we want to set the marker to be a marker with a coordinate. And the coordinate is going to be the very last object in the point chords array. So we'll say this state dot point chords, and the array object that we want is going to be the very last one. So it will be this state dot point chords dot length minus 1. That's the very last object in the array. And we end the marker element here. And now, excuse me, we need to pass in the marker in here, maybe underneath or below the polyline. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna put it below here, but remember to have it inside the map view, just like the polyline. Now let's save it and see if it works. So we pass in the destination here, we tap on the destination, and we see a very nice marker down here where our destination is. So people, that is how you enable routes inside of React Native Maps. You get them from the Google API, how you can zoom in and zoom out to show it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions or issues with it, let me know. I'll try and help you. Thank you.